not benefiting our countries and the world as a whole. It is apparent that sooner or later we had to amend the situation to move on from the confrontation to dialogue. And in this case, a personal meeting between the heads of state has been long overdue. Naturally, under the condition of serious and painstaking work, and this work has been done in general. Me and President Trump have very good direct contact. We've spoken multiple times. We spoke frankly on the phone. And Special Envoy of the President, Mr. Witkoff, traveled out to Russia several times. Our advisors and heads of foreign ministries kept in touch all the time. And you know fully well that one of the central issues was the situation around Ukraine. We see the strive of the administration and President Trump personally to help facilitate the resolution of the Ukrainian conflict. And his strive to get to the crux of the matter, to understand this history, is precious. As I've said, the situation in Ukraine has to do with fundamental threats to our security. Moreover, we've always considered the Ukrainian nation, and I've said it multiple times, a brotherly nation, however strange it may sound in these conditions. We have the same roots, and everything that's happening is a tragedy for us and terrible wound. Therefore, the country is sincerely interested in putting an end to it. At the same time, we're convinced that in order to make the settlement lasting and long-term, we need to eliminate all the primary roots, the primary causes of that conflict. And we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole. And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we are prepared to work on that. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. They will not make any attempts to use some backroom dealings to conduct provocations to torpedo the nascent progress. Incidentally, when the new administration came to power, bilateral trade started to grow. It's still very symbolic. Still, we have a growth of 20%. As I've said, we have a lot of dimensions for joint work. It is clear that the U.S. and Russian investment and business cooperation has tremendous potential. Russia and the U.S. can offer each other so much in trade, digital, high-tech, and in space exploration. We see that Arctic cooperation is also very possible, and our international context, for example, between the Far East of Russia and the West Coast of the U.S. Overall, it's very important for our countries to turn the page, to go back to cooperation. It is symbolic that not far away from here, at the border between Russia and the U.S., there was a so-called international date line. I think you can step over, literally, from yesterday into tomorrow. And I hope we'll succeed in that, in political sphere. I would like to thank President Trump for our joint work, for the well-wishing and trustworthy tone of our conversation. It's important that both sides are result-oriented, and we see that the President of the U.S. has a very clear idea of what he would like to achieve. He sincerely cares about prosperity of his nation. Still, he understands that Russia has its own national interests. I expect that today's agreements will be the starting point, not only for the solution of the Ukrainian issue, but also will help us bring back business-like and pragmatic relations between Russia and the U.S. And in the end, I would like to add one more thing. I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be brought to the point of no return when it would come to hostilities. And I said it quite directly back then that it's a big mistake. Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good, businesslike, and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. That was very profound. And I will say that I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Radcliffe, thank you very much. But we have some of our really great leaders. They've been doing a phenomenal job. We also have some tremendous Russian business representatives here. And I think, you know, everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world in a very short period of time. And we look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some great progress today. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax. That made it a little bit tougher to deal with, but he understood it. I think he's probably seen things like that during the course of his career. He's seen it all, but we had to put up with the Russia hoax. He knew it was a hoax, and I knew it was a hoax, but what was done was very criminal. But it made it harder for us to deal as a country in terms of the business and all of the things that we'd like to have dealt with. But we'll have a good chance when this is over. So just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, whose faces, who I know in many cases, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss, but especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good, productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So, again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir. And thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ready, guys? All right, there you go. That is President Putin and President Donald Trump. We are live coverage here at 6:07 Central, 7:07 Eastern Standard. Joining me now is one of our national security experts, David Pine. David, I didn't know how this meeting would go today. I don't guess you probably did either, but the longer it went, the more hopeful we were. Sounds like from President Trump's remarks, it was a great meeting. It's not a deal until it's a deal and signed. But he's going to call Zelensky and basically tell the little man what I guess they agreed on. And I guess he's going to have to get in line. He says NATO is got a big decision. What do you think of this? And how much of this comes down to Zelensky? At this point, is he going to be told what to do? I mean, his popularity is plummeting in Ukraine from the polls I've read.
Hey, Brad, great to be with you. This is a momentous occasion. It certainly does look like it was a very productive and positive summit from a peace perspective. President Trump finally got the opportunity, or made the opportunity, I suppose, to meet with.
Thank you all. Thank you. Sorry, guys, our computer rolled over to something else. Keep going. Sorry.
And that was what he said needed to happen to end the war in Ukraine. And from the reports that I'd seen, the terms of a ceasefire agreement were already in place. I think that one of the sticking point on the Russian side certainly was the return of the Donbass region to Russian control, which has not been under Russian control since Soviet times in terms of the entire Donbass region. And I'm speaking about principally Donetsk Oblast, which is 70% plus Russian controlled. That's where the main offensives are taking place to encircle Ukrainian, one or two Ukrainian army brigades in the Pokrovsk region. That offensive is going quite effectively. And everyone that I've been talking to says that the Ukrainian troops there are going to have about a week or two before they're surrounded, fully surrounded, and are forced to surrender or withdraw. So the momentum is clearly on Russia's side in terms of the war. Russia holds all the cards. And honestly, I think that if Zelensky and the EU leaders weren't in the picture, I think we would have seen a signed agreement today because, I think that's really the only obstacle. The only obstacles to peace are not Putin, not Trump, not what their objectives are. It's EU leaders and principally Volodymyr Zelensky, all of which are, with a few exceptions in the EU, are very militantly against any peace deal that would end the conflict.
Mm-hmm. Because as soon as the conflict's over, he's out of a job.
Yeah, that's right. So there's. He claims, at least, that the Ukrainian constitution doesn't allow presidential elections during time of war or martial law. That's actually false. I've looked it up. There's nothing in the Ukrainian constitution that says that. In fact, it only says that parliamentary elections are suspended during times of martial law. So it's silent on the presidential election question, and silence means that you got to keep having elections. And President Trump has. Initially, when he first came to office, was very strong at that point, pressuring Zelensky to hold elections until he dropped the matter temporarily with the signing of the minerals agreement on Zelensky's terms. One of the unspoken agreements of Zelensky signing the deal was that Trump would stop trying to replace him. And so, unfortunately, there's been no pressure of late on that front. But I do think that if Zelensky and EU leaders refuse the deal, which I suspect that Trump has largely finished negotiating on the with Russia, that Trump will return to being anti-Zelensky and want to see him ousted and replaced with a peace president, perhaps such as former Ukrainian Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko, who Russia has said is acceptable to them and also has very strong nationalist credentials in Ukrainian politics.
Is there any chance that the folks of Ukraine are going to get any of their money back from Zelensky? Because I hear he has are the reports true that this guy's got houses all over the world? I mean, I think they ought to, President Trump, after this deal is done, ought to call for his immediate arrest and prosecution, don't you?
Well, of course, I'd love to see that. But, when you have a dictator, you want to give him a soft landing. You want to incentivize them to a maximum extent to leave power voluntarily without the need for a violent coup or overthrow. And so I think what Trump should offer Zelensky is, I'd even consider Secret Service protection, some kind of security, U.S. security to help guarantee his life, essentially, because we know that if he is defeated or leaves power, he will not be able to remain in Ukraine due to the corruption charges against him. Reportedly, according to a Turkish newspaper, Blockbuster report, the Zelensky regime has squirreled away $2.1 billion in U.S., Western, and perhaps Ukrainian taxpayer funding for their own personal portfolios. So you're absolutely right. I mean, he's under major threat of legal prosecution and would most assuredly end up in prison if he remained in Ukraine after he lost power, resigned.
So since he wants to hold on to power, since all that doesn't happen, you think part of the negotiations is that we'll set you up in the Cayman Islands somewhere and you can have a nice house on the beach and some security and live your life, buddy, but this is it. I mean, this guy can't be allowed to just globetrot around the world, can he? With $2 billion of Ukrainians' money lost and kidnapping people off the street, including senior citizens, and putting them at the front line. I mean, this guy can't get a free ride. I mean, maybe a nice life on the beach, but other than that, he ought to basically be house arrest somewhere in some country, but we better not hear from you again or see you running around the world, writing books, giving speeches. You've pillared enough.
Yeah, I mean, he's a corrupt dictator. He's murderous. He kills his own people. He arrests all of his opposition leaders. Basically, he's everything we accuse Vladimir Putin of being, for good reason. So there's really, no real difference, morally speaking, between Putin and Zelensky, with one exception. Well, two exceptions, really. Zelensky doesn't invade his neighboring countries, even when security might demand it, as Putin has done. In two instances during his tenure of over 25 years. But primarily, Putin wants peace. Putin sincerely wants peace, and Zelensky is doing everything he can to sabotage the peace deal that Trump and Putin are close to negotiating for the exact reason you stated, is that he knows he will lose power. He knows his life and his family will be in legal and other jeopardy if he leaves power. And so he's committed to continuing to kill off hundreds of thousands more Ukrainians if necessary to stay in power.
Here's a quick clip from President Trump. Listen to this.
So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Radcliffe. Thank you very much. But we have some of our really great leaders. They've been doing a phenomenal job. We also have some tremendous Russian business representatives here, and I think everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world in a very short period of time.
So we'll see. So if you had to guess, David, tonight, August 15th, 2025, 7:15 Eastern Standard, 6:15 Central, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think it's exactly what we talked about. I think Trump is gonna, he's gonna brief Zelensky and EU leaders and say this is what we agreed to. This is what we're going forward with.
You think they'll accept it?
I need to know if you're with me or not. And if he finds out they're not with him, or if there's one or two terms that he wants to tweak with Russia, post meeting, that he does that. But I think Trump's going to get increasingly frustrated with EU leaders and Zelensky, and they're going to get on his bad side. And the U.S. and Russia, at least behind the scenes, they're arm in arm in support of peace. And folks like Starmer in Britain and Macron in France and Tusk in Poland and Merz in Germany and even Meloni in Italy, who we're told is a conservative but really isn't. Those five leaders will continue to stand with Zelensky against the United States, against Trump's foreign policy objectives. And so I think that's why I think this is a turning point, even though, I did predict there'd be some kind of joint memorandum of understanding in terms of the specific path to peace, in terms of a ceasefire and whatnot, and maybe even, a ceasefire in the air. I think that's still coming, but it just depends. Trump's still got these, these neocons whispering in his ear. He was scheduled to meet individually with President Putin in the first meeting of the day at 3:30 Eastern. And instead, I read that Marco Rubio decided that he wanted to be president and include Steve Witkoff as well. But Steve Witkoff doesn't have any policymaking authority. So basically, it was Rubio who was babysitting Trump to make sure he didn't give away the store, because Trump wanted a deal. And, I think if Rubio hadn't been in the room, then we very well could have had a signed deal. And that's what I was expecting to come out of, a Trump-Putin individual meeting with just their interpreters. And every other time that they've been together, they have had that individual meeting. This is the first time they haven't. So there were 3 times during the first Trump administration that they met one-on-one. And sadly, we didn't see that. If there had been that, I think the news would be even better today.
Here's another clip.
So just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team.
Okay, we didn't get there, but we'd like to get there. What do you think the remaining... So do we have a ceasefire, by the way? Do we even have a ceasefire?
No, there's no ceasefire. There's no partial ceasefire. I think Putin wants to keep his, all those incentives for Trump to sign a deal. He's going to wait to see if Trump, signs the deal they already agreed to. Reportedly, it was a U.S. peace offer that offered Russia full control of the Donbass in exchange for a ceasefire, in exchange for a return to Russian controlled slivers of territory in Mykolaiv, Dnipropetrovsk, and Kharkiv and Sumy. So in exchange for Russian-held territory in those 4 Ukrainian oblasts, essentially liberating all of those territories for Ukraine, Ukraine would give the 2% of Luhansk that they control, as well as the less than 30% of Donetsk. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a fair deal, especially when Russia holds all the cards. And reportedly, there was no provision for neutrality for Ukraine in that deal. So this would probably just be a 30 to 90 day ceasefire deal. I think from a Russian perspective, they would want the war to be over. I think obviously from Trump's perspective as well. So, the deal is on the table. That's what they discussed. And I think the big deal, the big thing that Trump's referring to is Donetsk. And he got so much pushback from the EU and Zelensky side that he probably decided not to sign the deal based on that one issue.
And of course, Russia wants those areas, I guess not only historically, some of them, but is it more importantly that they have those areas as buffers? Is that what they're looking for, a buffer zone?
So this dates back all the way to 2008. So when Bush threatened to invite Ukraine to join NATO, which they actually did in the April 2008 Bucharest meeting, according to former CIA director and then U.S. ambassador to Russia, William Burns, he stated that Putin warned Bush that if they tried to push Ukraine into NATO, that he would take back the Donbass and Crimea. And so the Donbass is Ukraine's prime industrial region in terms of rare earth minerals, industries. Those two kind of go together. Wherever you have rare earth minerals, you have mining industries that produce have heavy industries and produce manufacturing goods. And so I think that's kind of the rationale for that. But even more so, those are the areas that are most populated by ethnic Russians. So the Donbass region, consisting of Donetsk and Luhansk, were 40% ethnic Russian. Now I think they likely have a majority of Russians because many of Ukrainians have become refugees that previously lived in those territories. Crimea, of course, 75% Russian, and very, very much Russian predominantly speaking, 75% Russian speaking in the Donbass region, 90% in Crimea. So, Russia has a good claim to those territories. If those territories were to have a purely democratic vote that was free and fair, they most likely would vote to stay with Russia. And again, I think it's a fair deal. I think I think Russia is willing to give up its claims to the rest of Zaporozhye and Kherson regions. So this is a clear compromise, and I think that's why Trump decided to accept the Russian offer and counteroffer with his own deal that didn't include neutrality or disarmament for Ukraine.
Let's take a look at Russia Today. Provided a little behind-the-scenes footage. Here we go.
Now, we're here at the press center, but probably everybody's already seen this area. But I'm about to take you to a whole other part where not a lot of people are able to go right now, because that is the room where the press conference with both presidents is going to be held in just a few hours. And we are in, because we have special access, because we're part of the tight pool, as it's called. So this is where it's going to be in just a few hours. Both presidents will be speaking from there. We can see who out of the Russian delegation will be here, and this is where Putin's special representative envoy Kirill Dmitriev, one of the key participants of the negotiations, will be sitting. And here in the first row, this is where Foreign Minister Lavrov will be sitting, and this is another Putin's envoy, Yuri Ushakov. They will be sitting here in the first row. Again, this is where the presidents will be in just a few hours, and this is where us journalists will be sitting. I reserved myself that seat, so I will be quite close to the stage, and hopefully I'll be able to ask them a question. There are rumors, however, that the actual meeting could be held right behind those curtains. We don't know, but it's highly possible. Stay tuned for the actual press conference with the official comments from both leaders following their historic meeting here in Alaska.
And that's kind of interesting behind the scenes there. So this off-ramp to World War III, we're in a holding period. Would you be shocked if you saw some kind of false flag event on the part of the black shadowy CIA that who knows who has control of that part, right? I highly doubt the Trump administration does, but maybe a shadowy part of the CIA that doesn't want this to end, part of MI6 or anybody in the NATO area that wants to keep this going, to see a false flag, something happen in Ukraine, blame it on Russia, to basically blow this whole thing up, all this pending final points that have to be ironed out for an agreement. Would you be shocked at some of that if something like that happened, or would you be, shocked it would happen or not expect it?
I wouldn't be shocked at all if Zelensky or MI6 or the CIA, the deep state, tried to pull something like that. But with Trump on the other, on the peace side of the ledger, I think that it would be very difficult for unless the entire U.S. intelligence community covered it up, for them to keep the true identity of the attacker a secret. So I don't think so. I guess I would be surprised. I think that Zelensky would not likely risk that. Certainly, at this point, if his power, if his life was on the line, I think he'd be more likely to do something desperate like that, and he'd have to be very desperate to try that. At this point, I think he's hoping that EU leaders can convince Trump to backtrack. As we saw that, I think Trump had every intention, perhaps even as recently as Monday or Tuesday or even Wednesday. I think he planned to sign a deal, and he was convinced to delay a final deal because of the territorial issue with Donetsk Oblast. I think it's going to be interesting, but the main issue is momentum. In terms of Trump's been on the wrong side of the ledger the last 3 months. He's 3.5 months. He's been allying with the deep state, following the neocon America Last agenda, certainly with regards to Ukraine and arguably with Iran as well, and the Gaza war. But I think he's turned a corner here. And now that he's met with President Putin, he's found that Putin's still reasonable. He's still friendly. He's still willing to make a deal. He's offering massive Russian economic concessions in terms of cooperation on oil and natural gas for the United States, rare earths, things that will help expand U.S. economic growth. Whereas if Trump reverts back to form and starts passing 100 to 500% secondary sanctions, that's going to really hurt the U.S. economy at the worst time, because we'll go through a recession, and then we'll have the midterm elections, and guaranteed we would lose both houses of Congress if he were to enact 500% secondary sanctions on China, India, and other important trading partners.
Mm-hmm. So the next few days will tell whether there's a deal they can put on paper and have signatures. I imagine more is going to be spilling out over the weekend as we go into the new business week. Hopefully this thing will be nailed down and the world can sleep a little calmer, a little better, knowing that World War III isn't right around the corner, at least for now, we pray, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise here, or the most interesting thing of the day, really is that Trump refused to take any questions. He didn't
that
take
is shocking. Why do you think that is, David?
Because the details are what I've mentioned. He's a little bit embarrassed, in terms of what some of the details are, because he is offering concessions to Russia. He's offering territorial concessions.
So this is going to end up being a big victory for Russia, is what I'm hearing you say.
Not necessarily. I mean, I think it's a partial victory for Russia, but Putin's given in on he's decided to suspend some of his main objectives. He's suspended his call for Ukraine to be neutral. He's basically conceding that during the ceasefire period, or this interim peace agreement period, that Ukraine can remain a NATO proxy state, fully militarized, no disarmament, no restrictions on weapon ranges or types or numbers, or even NATO troops inside Ukraine. We know there are a lot of NATO troops, missile technicians firing missiles at Russia. Some of those things likely were discussed in terms of U.S. limitations, but that wouldn't have an effect on our NATO partners, because we just don't have we have the ability to force Ukraine to do our bidding, but unless Trump basically threatens to withdraw U.S. military forces from NATO, or even leave NATO entirely, he has less leverage over EU leaders.
So what would be a question that someone could throw at the President Trump, that he maybe wouldn't want to answer, or that would embarrass him or make him feel as though the art of the deal, he didn't get everything he was negotiating for? What one question or two questions would he not want today?
Well, the main issue is the Donbass. I think that he realizes that's a sensitive sticking point for Zelensky, for EU leaders. So he doesn't want the headline at this point, until a deal has been concluded. Then I think he's okay with all the terms getting out, but he doesn't want the headline to be, Trump's still offering the Donbass to Russia, and in exchange for a ceasefire. I mean, honestly, if I were president, I wouldn't care. I would take all those questions, and I would say, all I had to do was say, yes, that was discussed. Yes, that's still a possibility. If Russia makes, these concessions, that is something we would seriously consider agreeing to as well. So there's really no reason for him to be embarrassed or nervous. But we saw this during the first term, Trump's first term, when there was the Trump-Russia hoax that was CIA originated, because even during his 2016 campaign, he talked about a comprehensive peace deal with Russia, and that's when they invented this whole mess, because that's what makes the deep state view Trump as a main threat is his desire for peace with Russia. We know that JFK was assassinated because he made peace with Russia. He avoided nuclear war. He made some concessions. He withdrew our nuclear missiles from Italy and Turkey. That was viewed as too appeasement oriented. Nixon was overturned probably for similar reasons with the manufactured Watergate scandal that Tucker Carlson has covered. during some of his programs while he was a Fox News host. So yeah, this is interesting stuff. But the deep state is going to keep going all out with Zelensky and EU leaders to try to overturn the deal that Trump likely negotiated with Vladimir Putin.
Well, of course, as always, we appreciate your expert analysis, David, on a Friday night, 7:32 Eastern Standard. dpine.substack.com is his Substack, where he's keeping up on all of it with new articles pretty quick when they come out there. With the news, he's writing about it. So dpine.substack.com. Urge you to check it out and subscribe to that. David will, of course, break in if we have to throughout the weekend with any new news and new developments. But thank you for interrupting your evening and being with us to give us this analysis tonight.
Thanks, Brad. Always a pleasure. Have a great weekend.
You too. David Pine checking in, dpine.substack.com. And of course, we have the Worldview Report coming up at the top of the hour, 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern. And then Brandon House Live tonight at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. We have an exclusive tonight. Have you seen the footage going around of the heifer being burned in Israel? That was back in July 1st. We reported on it. Well, today, Tim Pool had a Jewish gentleman on and broke the news that there was nothing wrong with that heifer. We had been originally told it was blemished, and they were just doing a practice sacrifice, looking for the ashes for the heifer that's required per Numbers chapter 19 in the Old Testament for purification for their third temple. We were told that heifer, one of 5 that was brought over from the United States to Israel, was blemished, and they were just doing a practice. We reported on that around July 1st. Well, guess what, folks? Turned out today, the news broke, it was a perfect red heifer. They got 10 gallons of ashes. And one of the guys on Tim Pool's show today pulled out a little baggie. Well, guess what? We have tonight on Brandon House Live at 7:30 Central, an exclusive interview with Byron Stinson. He's the man that went looking for the red heifers, the perfect red heifers. And he's the one that shipped them, 5 of them, to Israel. They had to be classified as pets in order to get into the nation state. Even the Israeli government has been quite nervous about this, and we're told was pushing back against these Jews setting up this practice that now turns out to have been not a practice. In fact, Brian Stinson, who will be with us, the man that tracked down these 5 perfect heifers and sent them to Israel, where they went through analysis and a period of waiting, only to have one of them so far, one of, well, the 5, maybe more to come, be perfect. He says he was there that day. He's been helping oversee the project. He was there that day. He has quite a few of the ashes himself. He actually talked to us as we pre-recorded that this afternoon because we needed to go when he was available. He actually talked about how he and his wife and some of his kids actually used some of the ashes mixed with water for their own, what they refer to as basically a purification type ceremony, a religious ceremony. He'll tell you what his family members experienced after that. You'll hear it tonight from Brian Stinson. This is an exclusive interview tonight. This story today went absolutely viral, and it still is. Regardless of what you think about it, regardless of what your eschatology is, your end-time beliefs, your theology, it's very interesting. And we're going to interview him tonight, and you'll see it, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern Standard, Brandon House Live. Tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social. You do not want to miss the images, the videos, the pictures, and the interview tonight. In the meantime, before we sign off here, remember, we're brought to you by you. We are a listener-supported network. We push it all out for free. Our bandwidth bill, well, I think I saw it over $8,000 this week for the month, and that doesn't count all the other IT bills and expenses. We need your support, folks. WorldviewFoundation.com. Please go there now. Things slow down giving-wise a lot of times in the summer. People get busy and forget. But we're still here broadcasting 24/7 and coming to you with breaking news like we did with David Pine. So we need your support. WorldviewFoundation.com. WorldviewFoundation.com. Please consider going there, making a contribution of any size. You'll also find our mailing address. Don't forget also our national conference is coming up Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. And guess who we booked in to speak at our national conference? Byron Stinson. I said, Byron, you want to come and do a presentation on all this at our national conference, along with several other historical sites he's been working on in the Middle East? He said, yeah. So Byron Stinson will be added as a keynote speaker, along with Gordon Chang, Dr. Lana, Sidney Powell, Dr. Andy Woods, Alex Newman, Chris Martinson, Mark Mitchell, the lead pollster for Rasmussen. He'll be with us. All of them live in the building here outside of Memphis, Tennessee, in Collierville, Tennessee. You do not want to miss it. Now, we only have 350 seats. So the great thing about that, folks, is you're going to have plenty of opportunity to walk up and speak to the speakers. That's a big part of our conference. It's our 22nd annual Worldview Weekend. You should be here in person. All the details are at worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. You'll find the schedule, Friday night, Saturday, Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. The restaurants that we recommend you eat at, these are the restaurants we eat at on the weekends. You'll love them. And we screened them and put up the best, like great barbecue, Southern barbecue, and so much more is there. Regular traditional American style food as well. We got just some burger joints, Italian. We've got some great restaurants in Germantown and Collierville. And so it's all there at worldviewstore.com to make your weekend very easy. Get your hotel, get your tickets. We brought the tickets way down in price this year because we moved it from the Ozarks to the Mid-South. We were able to save a lot of money. So we're passing that savings on to you. So come join us. Again, with only 350 seats available at this theater that belongs to our town. It's a beautiful theater. Been remodeled a few years ago. Gorgeous. Because there's only 350 people can be there, you're going to have an opportunity to just go right up to the speakers because it's such a reasonable size audience. Now, I'm going to tell you, we are running spots. We are running spots on some pretty big news outlets all throughout the Mid-South starting next week. So if you want to attend, get your tickets, come join us. Don't forget the optional banquet with Adia Maramonde. She was inside the intelligence arena, former Muslim, now Christian. She was in meetings with Yasser Arafat over in the Middle East. She's got quite the bio, quite the testimony. She'll be with us on our Thursday night banquet. That's our foundation banquet. That's optional. You don't have to attend that. But if you're going to come to town, why not take it all in? Otherwise, just join us Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. We'll have lunch and dinner breaks for you to have time to go to local great restaurants. So again, we've added in Byron Stinson, the man that went looking for a breeding program to produce perfect red heifers. And as he'll be with us tonight exclusively, they did indeed sacrifice one and have 10 gallons of ashes. So now they can build their temple or do a temporary tabernacle. They now have what they need for the cleansing and purification. So again, regardless of where you come down on this, theology-wise or eschatology, it's a big story and one that is sure to ignite some serious blowback from the Islamists in the Middle East. So again, that's tonight, 7:30 Central, Brandon House Live. But come hear him speak in person at the 22nd annual Worldview Weekend. All the details, worldviewstore.com. Now, if you can't make it, you're going to miss out on 50% of the benefit of being in the building. But if you want to be 50% blessed, stay at home and watch it. But you're going to be missing 50% of the best part, which is there in person, interacting with the other people and the speakers. But we will allow you to live stream it Friday night and Saturday if you are a Vault member. You can join at worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. Get a year membership and you'll be able to live stream it, plus have access to 35 years of my library, ebooks, audiobooks, radio shows, TV shows, documentaries, the stuff we've been doing here for 35 years. I know. Where has the time gone? That's our exhaustive library that includes us interviewing many, many people that from years gone by, a lot of household names you would know, and some world-leading worldview, apologetic, and theological and prophecy guys, some of them who have passed on into glory. So that's archived there, and you'll get all of that. You'll get all of that as part of your membership, plus live streaming special events like what's coming up October 3rd and 4th. By the way, October 9th, we'll have Catherine Austin Fitz in studio with us right here at this desk. And that will be 1 to 2 Central on October 9th. We'll be live on radio, 74 stations, TV. And then the next hour will only be exclusively for Vault members. So we're going to be doing increasingly more things only for Vault members. So go ahead and get your membership and you'll get a lot of benefits. We also have coming this fall what we've been working on for a year, some super powerful servers and search engines, and having these servers crawl over every radio show, 60,000 plus radio shows, 30,000 plus TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, documentaries, crawling all over it, transcribing every bit of it, 35 years worth. And you're going to be able to start asking our database questions. And from our quarantined and isolated 35 years of research, quarantined and isolated, it will start bringing you the research and you'll be able to pull up clips. I would love to be able to say, hey, I wonder when we talked about this, what did we say about this back in 2010 or 2012 or 2005? Well, guess what? Everything's been transcribed now and we'll be able to find it. I asked my IT guy on a scale of 1 to 10 today, I said, how impressed am I going to be? 10 being the highest. He's a very mild-mannered guy. He said, Mr. House, it's going to be a 15. I said, why do you say that? He said, you won't believe what these powerful computers can do now. Finding you saying 1 or 2 sentences, you put in what you said, it'll go find it in your 35 years of broadcast. So you're going to be able to ask it Bible questions, history questions, economic questions. As we've covered law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion for 35 years with some of the leading experts in the world. So that's part of the vault. I can't wait. I can't wait to use it myself. I can't wait to use it live on the air. And I hope you'll enjoy it as well, because we got a lot of research. We just frankly can't access it all. We can't find it. We know we said these things. We know this guy said this in this interview, but some of these people we've interviewed 200, 300 times. We don't know which interview he said that in. Well, now this database has searched it, tagged it, and transcribed it. We're going to be able to find it and use it and bring it back. It's going to be a lot of fun to see the things that we talked about, that we predicted, and many of those trends are now here. And we're going to see ourselves talking about it years ago, but it will also bring the context and the understanding. It's going to be a powerful, what we're really calling a worldviewpedia. It's going to be a powerful encyclopedia of research. So that's part of the vault. So go ahead and join worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. All right. Normally in this hour is WorldviewTube's Washington Report, but we had the breaking news tonight out of Alaska with President Putin and President Trump. I don't know what the boys are going to go to in the control room, but we're going to sign off now. We're going to come back at 7 p.m. Central. That's in 15 minutes with the Worldview Report. And then 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern, the exclusive interview with Byron Stinson, the man that went in search of a program of perfect red heifers, delivered them to Israel. And now a couple years later, guess what? We've got a perfect red heifer that we just found out today was not a practice, as we were told in July, but was an actual sacrifice that has rendered 10 gallons of ashes. You'll find out what all this means per Numbers chapter 19 and the third temple, often referred to as the Tribulation Temple. All that tonight. So tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, True Social. Tell everybody to be back here for that exclusive interview, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern at worldviewtube.com. This has been a breaking news broadcast from our main studios in the Mid-South. Thanks for watching. Take care.
Consumers often ask, what should I expect when I take the Bella Grace Elixir? And the answer's varied. It really depends on what your health and wellness needs are. I would consider this as your foundational core product for a whole range of health and wellness issues. Let me give you a few examples. If you're a little bit older and you have some joint health issues, some problems with mobility and discomfort, the elixir is going to be your best friend. If you have some skin health issues, wrinkles, hydration, aging, all of those elements are going to be benefited from the elixir, including
Joining me now is Dr. Mark Lucky. He's the author of a brand new book, Rest to Repair, Unlocking the Secrets to Inflammation, Restorative Sleep, and Vitality. You know, a lot of people say to me, Brandon, you must not sleep very much. Rungo, that's one thing I do not skimp on is my sleep. I try to always get 7 to 8 hours every night, no matter what's going on. I mean, there occasionally I don't do that because something big